turning to one of our other top stories, a manhunt is underway in Brussels, or has been underway. The Belgian government says the prime suspect in the attacks in Paris last year, Salah Abdeslam, has been caught by police during a raid in the Brussels district of Molenbeek. Another suspect has been shot dead and a third wounded in the operation. Well, for more, let's speak to Jacques Reland. He's a senior research fellow at the Global Policy Institute. Mr. Reland, good to speak to you this evening. So what is your response to the news that Abdeslam may well have been caught this evening?
Yeah, it appears, and I think it's been confirmed, that he's been arrested, injured, but alive. And that's very good news because he was one of the main instigators of the 13th of November attacks on the Bataclan. He's the one who acted as a logistician, hired the flats, hired the cars to take the commando from Belgium to Paris. He actually dropped the bombers in the Stade de France. And after that was going to apparently carry out an attack in the 18th arrondissement, but did not drop his car there, and is the one who, the following day, fled back to Belgium, was stopped by the police, but not suspected at the time, so was able to go back to Belgium from where they had organized and coordinated all the attacks on the 13th of November. So it's very important to have arrested him alive, because he is the one who knows who ordered the operation, how it was organized, how many people took part in it. So it seems that now they're getting close to having arrested, or killed, but arrested most of the members of the network, and the police will be hoping to find some important information from them. He's actually under arrest in Belgium, but no doubt the French police, French anti-terrorist police, who took part in the action today, apparently there were 7 anti-terrorist policemen backing the Belgian operation there, will definitely be looking forward to interviewing him and getting more information.
Mr. Reland, one thing that strikes me about this whole investigation, from the raid on the Saint-Denis flat days after the attacks in Paris to this latest raid, is just how close to the scene of some of these issues these suspects have been. Why do you think it's taken the police and the security services quite so long to make these arrests?
Yes, I'm sure questions will be asked about that, because it seems that we don't know how that they seem to have been caught short. The problem has been highlighted since many people have argued the issue that maybe the Belgian police had not been doing its work, but the French intelligence service here were not also blame-free, because the fact that he was able to get out of France while have been arrested by the French, stopped by the French police, but obviously they didn't know him. But it's a bit, they should have been a bit more careful. It seems that maybe some of these arrests have been kind of haphazard. Like, for example, the raid on Tuesday, when they went to search this flat on Tuesday, it was meant to be a flat where they did not expect to find anyone. It was a cold flat, as they say, cold, i.e. no running water, no electricity. They did not think anybody would be in there. They were there looking for clues, and they just happened to come across, and it showed how ill-prepared they were, in the fact that they did not come heavily armed. They almost knocked on the door or tried to get into, and were attacked, shot at immediately. They did not seem to be ready for that thing. So some questions will be raised about maybe the casual attitude at some point of the intelligence or anti-terrorist services in that matter. And it took a long time to arrest everyone, and maybe it's by chance. Some people are saying that no, it's only by chance that they found in this flat after the shooting that they found DNA. It was not by chance because they wanted to search it, but they did not expect maybe Salah Abdeslam to be in that flat. It just happened to be there. It was a bit of luck, so a mixture of luck, bad luck at times. Hazard seemed to have played a part in finally arresting most of the groups. Apparently one is still on the run at this stage, but most of the key logisticians, key bombers, key backers seem to have been either killed or And now, especially, that's very important that he is under arrest, and therefore, from then on, maybe could be a gold mine of information for the French anti-terrorists and for the Belgians also, obviously. Yeah.
And Mr. Reland, what do you think this means now for France? The state of emergency is still in place. There were calls to try and have it lifted. What do you think now that we seem to have come to almost the denouement of this case? Do you think there will be more calls now?
As you said, is the denouement of what happened on the Bataclan in the south of France, what happened a few months ago, but there could be other cells, you see, and that's why, and apparently, for example, only a few days ago, the French authorities announced that they had foiled a planned attack on France, so that they arrested a group of terrorists. So this Belgian group was very important, and Belgium has been at the center of many, or at the source of many attacks, like the attack on the Jewish Museum by a French terrorist had been organized from Belgium. So now, but it doesn't mean that there are not other cells elsewhere in France ready to attack at some point. So I don't think that at this stage the government will be lifting the state of emergency. They'll say, okay, we've had one success, but we'll still stay on our guard because we know that there are other groups, or we suspect other groups to be preparing some other attacks.
And Mr. Reland, of course, this was discussed a lot at the time, back in November, about this idea of homegrown radicalization. Abdel Salam was a French citizen caught living in Belgium, and many of the people were from the neighborhoods in and around Paris. Just what are the French security forces and the European security forces more widely doing to try and tackle homegrown radicalization and homegrown terrorism?
Oh, they've been, obviously, as part of the state of emergency, has been one way, at least the French authorities said, by the fact that, for example, it allows the police to search flats without warrants, without judge, or to interrogate and detain suspects without a warrant. It allowed them to actually penetrate or agitate the circles, the radical circles. There, maybe some might have gone to ground, but at the same time, it seems that they say this state of emergency has been criticized because we say, oh, there's not, as a result of that, we haven't had many arrests. But the French anti-terrorist forces say, yes, but we've had some information, and now it will lead to better intelligence on our part. We don't know, because as we see, intelligence is always very secretive. But yes, what do they call? They're homegrown. Many of the terrorists are French, very often, sometimes from Moroccan or Algerian background, North African background. We know we have about quite a few million people in France, and some of them in the suburbs and so on, have been radicalized. It's difficult to say. We know that France and Belgium are the main suppliers of jihad terrorists for the Islamic State, for Daesh in Syria. And we know also, and the French authorities have been saying that some of them are going to, some of them are going to come back from Syria well trained, well equipped, and will be activated at some point. So we have to stay on our guards, and that's the way it's going to be for the coming months.
Now, Mr. Reland, of course, there is often talk in France about the disenfranchisement of working class youth, and perhaps that this kind of taking to radicalization is a result of that. We know the state of emergency is in force, and that has been a security effort. What's been done socially in France to try and bring communities together?
Actually, the government, especially the Prime Minister, has been at pains to say, okay, it has nothing to do with social conditions. We know that there's a strong resentment among the young French people of North African origin because they're discriminated against, they find it hard to find work, etc., etc. But they also argue, look, some of the terrorists we've arrested were not that type. Some of them were, some of the people involved in the Bataclan attack, French, lived actually, were very middle class. One of them was a tube driver, a bus driver for the French Transport Authority. They were not all very poor, very radical. On the opposite, some of them had done very good studies, informative, and had jobs. So they say it's an issue. Actually, the issue of Daesh is more, it's not so much a social issue as an ideological issue. If you have to look at the Islam terrorists, you have to look at the image of Islam, the idea behind the Islamic State is a very political idea, harking back to the old days of the caliphate and so on, and which is something that we see also that this jihadism attracts not only people from Arab background, but newly converted French, European Muslims, there's quite a few, who see that, and you could argue that now that there's no longer any communist revolution on the cards, the only cause which can motivate some of the young people who are disillusioned today, who think that life is not good, you know, you have somebody, it's quite, when you're 20, very often, you want an ideal. And Daesh provides the philosophy behind Daesh, the teachings behind Daesh, provide an ideology for these people, for a new state, a new way of life, a new social organization, which could, which uplift them. And so that's why, in this case, I will not make a link between the discrimination which the young Arabs suffer from in France and the jihadist attack. I think you have to look at it more as it's a fight, it's an intellectual and ideological fight that you also have to do. You also have, obviously, to act socially, but I think at this stage, it's more when you see the people who've been arrested, the people who have carried out such attacks, you can see that they are motivated by something much stronger, the same way as before we had revolutionary Marxist terrorists, before that, early a century ago, anarchist terrorists, but today, the people, young radical people, there's only one cause to espouse, is the jihad cause.
Well, Mr. Jacques Reland, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. I have to leave it there, but thank you very much.
Thank you.